Let's just redo this whole entire video. This is how the fat that you eat in your food, from your steak, from your butter and your eggs, or from your cookies and ice cream and even more butter, turns into the fat that you hold in your belly, in your fat cells, wherever you tend to store fat in your body. So in today's agenda, we are going over fat digestion, absorption, and then how the fat that you eat turns into the fat that you store in your belly, in your fat cells. Super important that we understand digestion and absorption, because you can eat a food, but if you just poop it out without absorbing it, the calories don't count. No nutrients, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, proteins, none of these things actually count unless you absorb them. To start this video off, let's figure out what fats are actually in the food that you're eating. In this wee little diagram, we have very good for you foods over here and very ungood for you foods over here. Obviously, this is a salmon, and in your salmon, there is a lot of omega-3 polyunsaturated fatty acids, specifically EPA and DHA. And EPA and DHA are excellent for cognitive health. They're very good for learning, memory, and just improving your brain health. There's also a lot of phospholipids in your salmon and any cold water fatty fish as well. There's some cholesterol and some saturated fat. And then in your avocado over here, there is a lot of monounsaturated fatty acids, so omega-7 and 9s. And then there's also a ton of saturated fat. In your French fries, there is a lot of trans fat, but there's also a huge amount of omega-6 polyunsaturated fatty acid, and omega-6 is very pro-inflammatory. It literally acts as a pro-inflammatory signaling molecule within your body. And then up here we have our little sugar cookie, and it is very high in trans fat. It's pretty high in saturated fat as well, but just specifically trans fat. And trans fat is literally the worst thing for you, and it's probably going to give you heart disease. Trans fat is any type of hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated vegetable oil, palm oil, or seed oil. That's something that you definitely want to avoid at all costs. So all of these foods have fat in them. These foods have very heart healthy, brain healthy fats. These foods definitely do not. And then also just in general, what makes these foods superior to these foods is that these have a ton of bioactive compounds, antioxidants, and then they have high nutritional value. There are a lot of vitamins and minerals in the avocado and in the salmon, and there are not very many, if any at all, vitamins and minerals in the sugar cookie or in the French fry. The French fry, because it's a potato, it might have some potassium, some magnesium, but this is not a good source of nutrition. And then also, if we want to talk about fatty acid quality, these are pure unprocessed foods. The fats are in good quality, they are in natural, healthy, unoxidized forms. Over here, because these French fries have been deep fried in seed oil at very high temperature and exposed to a lot of oxygen, the fat is highly oxidized and it's damaged, further making it even more inflammatory. These foods are ungood for you. They're actually just really bad for you. These foods are very good for you. So those are the fats in your food. But what is so important to understand is that all these fats are getting digested and absorbed the exact same way. And the fat that you eat from this food and the fat that you eat from this food, a lot of it is all gonna end up getting stored in the same adipose tissue, in the same fat cells in your body. So let's figure out how the fat that you eat from your food is digested and absorbed. So let's just say you ate a really nice steak or a great big bowl of ice cream. What you have to do to actually digest and absorb that food is, first, in your mouth, you're chewing, so you're breaking it up into smaller pieces, and then you swallow, and that chunk of chewed up food is now in your stomach. Your stomach is lined by smooth muscles, and what your stomach does to help fat digestion is it does this thing called churning, and that literally just means your stomach muscles are going woo, woo, woo to further help break up that food and increase the surface area so that all these digestive enzymes can do a better job at breaking up the food and enzymatically digesting it. So your stomach is doing all this churning. Now this mushed up food has to get to your small intestine. Your small intestine is where all these nutrients and all these fatty acids, lipids, cholesterol, this is where all of that is going to get absorbed. So for that mushed up food to get from your stomach into your small intestine, it has to go through your pyloric sphincter. So your stomach is like right here, and then your pyloric sphincter is like right here. And the pyloric sphincter is actually very interesting because it contributes to fat digestion by doing this thing called shear force. So literally imagine this pyloric sphincter is like a pair of scissors just going like snip, 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 snip to all these chunks of food that are going into your small intestine. The mushed up food is sitting here, and your pyloric sphincter is opening a little bit, letting the food go through, and then it's quickly going close, like it's quickly going snip. This is referred to as shear forces, and it's just further helping break up the food that you've eaten. It's further helping increase surface area, and it's helping you digest your food better. Now these chunks of food are in your small intestine. All your digestive enzymes like your peptidases, amylases, pancreatic lipase, all these enzymes are helping break down the nutrients and helping them get absorbed. So vitamin C is getting absorbed, magnesium's getting absorbed, sugar's getting absorbed, amino acids, everything's getting absorbed in your small intestine. Let's figure out how the fat is actually getting absorbed. Now this fat from your food has arrived in your small intestine. We have phospholipids, triglycerides, saturated fatty acids, unsaturated fatty acids, cholesterol esters. All these lipid molecules are in your small intestine. They need to be absorbed. The first thing that we need to do for your lipid digesting enzymes to access these lipids is we need to emulsify them. Fats and lipids are hydrophobic. They don't like the aqueous, watery environment of your small intestine. They like each other. So the fats and the lipids are gonna chunk up together, and that makes it very, very hard for your digestive enzymes to access them if they're all like in a big clump together. First thing that needs to happen is we need bile to emulsify the big chunk of fat. So your liver synthesizes bile and then it stores it in the gallbladder. And when your small intestine kind of detects that there are fats present, your gallbladder literally goes like squeeze, 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 and it squeezes out the bile into your small intestine. Bile literally goes in and it emulsifies the fat. It breaks up the fat into little smaller globules, and it starts to make these things we call micelles. Literally what a micelle is it's just like a small little collection of different types of lipids in your small intestine. Now we have these little micelles and we have bile emulsifying the fat. Bile is stabilizing the micelle. All these lipid digesting enzymes like cholesterol esterase, phospholipase 2, pancreatic lipase, these are all gonna start entering the micelle and chopping up the fats. So a cholesterol ester is gonna be broken up into cholesterol and a fatty acid. Triglycerides are gonna be broken up into a free fatty acid and a diglyceride, or free fatty acid monoglyceride. All these lipids inside the micelle are now going to be chopped on up and broken down by your lipid digesting enzymes. This micelle is what's going to facilitate lipid absorption. Now this micelle is going to float on over to your absorptive cells lining your small intestine. These are called your enterocytes, and your enterocytes are literally covered in transporters and channels for absorbing things like magnesium, iron, vitamin C, the B vitamins, potassium. All these vitamins, minerals, amino acids all have to get into your body at the enterocyte through their specific transporters or channels. What the micelle does is it docks onto the top of the enterocyte, the absorptive cell, and it lets those fatty acids, those lipid digestion end products, literally melt into the enterocyte. They just diffuse into your enterocyte. What makes lipids very different from any other nutrient, different from amino acids, sugar, literally anything else, is that they do not enter your blood right away. B vitamins, those are gonna enter your blood, go straight to your liver. Sugar is gonna enter your blood and it's gonna go straight to your liver. Fatty acids, lipids, cholesterol, these are not going to do that because they are bigger and because they're hydrophobic. So this is where everything gets so exciting. Inside your enterocyte, when it is full of all these lipid digestion end products, your enterocyte needs to make this thing called a chylomicron. A chylomicron is like pretty similar to VLDL cholesterol particle, except the difference is that a chylomicron is full of food fat. Chylomicron is full of all the fat that you ate. A VLDL particle is full of all the fat that your liver decided to put in the VLDL or fat that your liver made. So in your small intestine, this chylomicron is being assembled, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna put phospholipids inside of there. We're gonna put triglycerides inside of there. We're gonna put cholesterol and cholesterol esters. These are all going into the chylomicron. And then for your body to know what to do with the chylomicron, we need like a few identifiers or like escorts on the chylomicron. So your body, your enterocyte, is gonna make these apolipoproteins called ApoB48, ApoC2, and ApoE, and it's gonna put that on the coat of the chylomicron. So inside of the chylomicron, it's full of hydrophobic, lipophilic, lipid, fat molecules. On the outside, it's got phospholipids and it's got apolipoproteins. This chylomicron is very large. It cannot just go straight into your blood. When we are using the chylomicron to absorb these fats, it goes into your lymphatic system. From your lymphatic system, it travels like whoosh, 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 up here to your thoracic duct. And your thoracic duct is where your lymphatic system drains into your blood. So these chylomicrons are entering your blood up about here, and now they are literally just like free to float around, circulate all over your body. What this chylomicron does now is this is going to deliver all those triglycerides to your fat cells. So inside the chylomicron, it's full of triglycerides. There's some cholesterol, some phospholipids, some cholesterol esters. What it needs to do now, its sole priority, is to show up to your fat cells and put the fat into your fat cells, into your adipose tissue to store for later purposes, like just to store as energy from your food. This chylomicron will float to your adipocytes, but it cannot just let the triglyceride into your fat cell. The triglyceride is like a little bit too big. That chylomicron has on its surface the apolipoprotein ApoC2. ApoC2 turns on this enzyme called lipoprotein lipase. So recall that the triglyceride is too big to just hop from the chylomicron into the adipocyte. We need to use lipoprotein lipase to chop up the triglyceride and let its contents float on into the fat cell. Then your fat cell will literally just reassemble the triglyceride. So what ApoC2 does is ApoC2 turns on lipoprotein lipase. Lipoprotein lipase reaches into the chylomicron, grabs the triglyceride, chops it up, and it lets those chopped up contents, the monoglyceride and the free fatty acids, into the fat cell. Once the monoglyceride and the free fatty acids are in the fat cell, your fat cell will re-esterify the fatty acids onto the monoglyceride to build a diglyceride and then a triglyceride. And now your fat cell is going to store those triglycerides. Now this chylomicron has dropped off all the triglycerides to your fat cells. Your fat cells are filling up. There are not like any triglycerides really left in the chylomicron. Now we call it a chylomicron remnant because it is the remains of the chylomicron. So now this chylomicron is going to float around in your body and it's going to wind up back at your liver. Your liver is going to recognize the ApoE, apolipoprotein, and it's going to like bind to the receptor and it's going to take in the chylomicron and then your liver is gonna do whatever the frick it wants to with those lipids. That is everything you needed to know about fat digestion, absorption, and then how it actually gets into your fat cells. What is super important to understand is that just because you eat fat doesn't mean you are going to get fat or gain weight. I eat a lot of fat, and I would like to think like I'm definitely not obese, definitely not overweight. I think I'm quite fit and lean, but I eat a lot of fat. I literally ate venison last night. I eat 4 eggs every day, a lot of sheep's and goat's yogurt, olive oil, all these nice sources of healthy fat. I'm not eating French fries and hot dogs and like hamburgers. So you have to make sure that you're eating high quality, real nutrient dense food, but then you also have to make sure you're not going over your calorie or your energy balance. When you have more energy coming in than what your body is burning, this is when you start to store that energy, and most likely you're going to be storing that energy as fat in your fat cells, because your fat cells are literally specialized to store extra energy as fat in that tissue. If you're eating way too many calories from sugar, your liver can do a very good job at turning those sugars into fats, into triglycerides, then exporting those to your fat cells to store. So just because you're eating fat does not mean you're going to get fat. If you're eating way too many calories, you're probably going to start storing more fat. If you're eating less calories than the calories that you burn, well, then your body has to make up for that energy gap somewhere. It's going to tap into stored body fat, and it's going to burn that body fat for energy, and you're going to lose fat. That concludes everything I wanted to discuss in today's video. Let me know in the comments what you found super cool, exciting, and interesting. I would love to hear from you. And then if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe so you get all this content. Yes, so you get all the good content. Okay, goodbye, everybody.